What's up, everyone? All right, well, here we are. It's Thursday, and I'm locking up my first red day for the month of September. That's not what I wanted here on day 3. Green on Tuesday, green on Wednesday, and now Thursday, I've given back basically everything I made on Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, so what went wrong? You know, the frustrating thing today is that my accuracy was pretty good, but I'm still red. How does that happen? My average losers were bigger than my average winners. I had 2 big losses today, and that wiped out all of the winners. Now, this is a problem. You know, it's not sustainable to have average losers that are bigger than your average winners. I mean, I guess it can be sustainable if your accuracy can be like 90 or 95%, but that's not very sustainable in and of itself. So realistically, you need to have your winners and losers be at least equal in size, and it's preferable that your winners are bigger than your losers, which is typically the case for me and has been the case this whole year up until August. During the month of August, the winners got smaller. The losers stayed about the same, but the winners got smaller because we weren't seeing stocks that were pulling away, squeezing, giving me the chance to size up, double my position size, and get these really big wins. So the average winners were smaller. That continues to be the case here in September. And today, going red, honestly, it was the result of frustration. I got stubborn. And so I don't really have anyone else to blame but myself. I mean, I guess that would always be the case. It's me pressing the buttons. But nonetheless, I do feel disappointed. I'm a bit frustrated. However, I guess the silver lining is that I did make back a little bit off the lows, and I could pretty openly recognize where I went wrong, where the mistakes were. So let's break it down. And we're going to really talk about BBLG for a minute, because this is the stock that was one of my first stocks I traded and one of the last stocks I traded. So BBLG popped up this morning. It starts squeezing at 7 a.m., exactly 7 a.m. It pops up on the scanner, and at 7 a.m., there were a couple other stocks that had been on the scans, including BRIA, but it had begun its move after hours and then sort of popped up at 4 a.m., but was selling off. So that one was not in play. BSLK, this one had popped up kind of early, but was selling off, coming into 7 a.m. So that was out of play. And then there were a couple of stocks that were either lower priced or had higher floats that were also out of play. So coming into the 7 a.m. at top of the hour, kind of open for most retail traders, there wasn't anything I was really watching. So when BBLG popped up and hit the scanners, I immediately thought, okay, here we go. You know, it's a little on the cheaper side, being, $2.50 or whatever, but that's okay. So it pops up here to 260, up to 270, and I took a starter at 285. It goes up to a high of $3, and I sold. I ended up only making about $300 on that first trade. I ended up getting a partial fill on my entry, and it kind of went without me. But nonetheless, made $300 on it. That was fine. But then it drops all the way back down to 215. And had higher volume selling. So I thought, yikes, that's not great. You look at the 1-minute chart here. We'll zoom in on this. And you can see, look at the high volume red candle. So it pops back up, and then another high volume red candle, and it drops back down. So I thought this thing is just really tricky. It comes back up to 3 right here. It pulls back, and then it comes back up again to 3. In just a minute, it's going to come back up. And right here, I bought for the break over 3. And I ended up taking a little bit bigger position on that trade, 25,000 shares. So I got in just under 3, I got out just over 3, and made about $2,500 on it. So I was up about $3,000, just under $3,000 in total on BBLG, which was, look, it was a start to the day. It wasn't bad. It then pulls back, comes back up, pulls back, comes back up. And right here, I got back in. Now on this trade, I thought it was finally going to break 3, and we were going to squeeze up to 320 right up here, and it just was not able to do it. And so in that trade right there, I got in, and bottom falls out. I got smoked, and I lost everything I had made on it. Went back to up only $118 on the stock. So that was disappointing. It came back up again, and I said, I can't get back into this. I can't trust it. And look at these reversal jackknives right there. Sort of right there, this bigger one here, this even bigger one here, these topping tails. I mean, every time this thing popped up, it just flushes back down. So For whatever reason, that stock is not trustworthy. It was the first stock I traded. It was one of the last I traded, and it was just very difficult. So then the next stock I traded was PPBT. So, and this is my P&L on the day, down $12,000, but I'm down $23,000 on the stock that's currently up over 100%, which is really embarrassing. I managed to lose on that. We'll talk about that, of course, in a second. So the next trade was on PPBT. PPBT hits the scanners. I basically did the same thing, buying a micro pullback on it. This one, well, actually, so this one pops up, it dips down, and I got in for the curl back up here, and I locked up about $3,000. So at that point, that $3,000 plus the $3,000 I was up on BBLG put me up, it was like coming up to $6,000 on the day. I'm not sure if the second trade on BBLG had happened yet, but got myself up at least $3,000 on the day, and then shortly thereafter, I'd be up $5,000, $6,000 on the day with those additional trades on BBLG. So after those two stocks, NAOV hits the scanners. Lower float stock, it's a medical equipment stock as well, reverse split, jumped into that in the middle of this spike right here, and was able to pull $2,000 of profit out of it. So this is one where I'm sort of familiar with the name. I know it's a lower float stock. Basically, this popped up, pulled back, popped up, pulled back, and I got in right here. It pops up to 7 dips and then goes up to a little over 7 right there. So I didn't buy the first spike. I let it pull back, but I got in right there, which is sort of an ABCD pattern. Not super clean, but it did end up working. So with that, I was up about $9,000 on the day, and I was like, that was not so bad. Then I got back into BBLG and lost, about $4,000 or whatever it was. So went from up $9,000 on the day to up about $5,500 on the day. So I had that first big loss on BBLG. That was disappointing. Then right after that, I took this big loss on CIGL. So what happened on CIGL? Well, so first of all, the stock has a 22 million share float. I thought that seemed a little higher. It's a Singapore company. I didn't have high expectations for it. So I didn't trade it between $1.50 and $3. It pulls back. I didn't trade it between $3 and $3.50. It dips down and it pops up here. And I had this trend line drawn connecting this high to this high. And so I said, right here, and I had this other one drawn there. I said, this looks like it's breaking ascending resistance and we've got room up to here. And I recognized on the daily that we had a trigger at 440, which was the high from back here, that gave us, room back higher. So what I ended up doing on this was taking a starter. And I don't know why I did this, but I ended up getting stubborn on this one. So I took my starter right here for the break of 4. And it hits a high of 407, which is like, all right, I'm up 7 cents a share. And then it broke and went up to 417. And then right in this candle, it goes up to 417. And I just felt like if it would just break and hold this level, it would pull away. So I added up here and I added heavy, and that got my cost basis up to about 410. So now I'm in at $4.10. It flushes down to 4. It drops all the way down to 280, as you could see right there, and then it ends up going lower. So I ended up stopping out at about 282. I got out, let's see, the low of this candle was 382. The low of this candle was 376, and I was out at 382. So unfortunately, I ended up losing $23,000 on that trade. And, I kind of asked myself, why did I get so stubborn? And, instead of just taking the loss, why did I keep adding? So, I went from 20,000 shares to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80,000 shares. And then I lost, like 25 cents on 80,000 shares. It's $24,000, almost 30 cents. It's just stupid. It's not, there was no reason to take so much size. So in that moment, something came over me. I got frustrated, stubborn, and I lifted my max share size that I had set on my account. So I have a max cap on my account, which was at 25,000 shares. And out of frustration, I lifted it, which is not a good idea. And the result, obviously, was that I lost significantly more than if I had just stopped adding. I don't know, maybe it's the last few weeks, just, well, it must be a couple things. It must be on the one hand, just having taken that loss of, giving back half my day in one trade from up 9,000, which is decent, respectable, to up, quote, only 5,000. That hurt. I must have been up a little bit more on BBLG, but in any case, so, taking that bigger loss on BBLG, really frustrating. And it was like in an instant. And I think sometimes when that happens, it kind of, flips this switch internally where you're like, I need to get that back. And it's not like that was a lot of money to lose, but in this current market, the wins have been a little harder to come by. And so catching that loss felt like getting kicked maybe while I was down a little bit. So then I, and then I think there was a little bit of frustration that I had underestimated this and missed this whole move. So then finally I get in at the top and I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that buys the top on this, but sure enough, I am. And it drops down. And so I took the loss. Now, could I have just held? That would not have been a good idea. I would have been down like $70,000, $60,000 if I had just kept holding. That would not have been a good idea. And it would have eventually, as it turns out, come back up. But if I was still holding even now, I'd be down over 100 grand. So it's better just to cut the loss and move on. And I cut the loss and I moved on. And after that, I traded HWH, which I ended up making $5,000 on. This was this breakout right here, squeezing up and then squeezing up higher. And in fact, if I had just traded that, I actually would have made back the loss on BBLG. But in that moment of sort of emotional hijack and frustration, I just went, full throttle on CIGL and then, got smoked on it. So not a great day for me. Not, I would say, a flaw in the strategy, but a flaw in the execution of the strategy, which is more of the mistake today was emotional. And I let myself get stubborn and frustrated. And so, look, this is the way it goes. No one's immune from it, it'll happen. And you've just got to recognize as quick as you can and try to self-correct. And that's the best you could do. It's like, the thing with losing with trading is it would be like expecting to be a downhill skier and never fall. It's not a realistic expectation. Downhill skiers, if you're pushing the edge of your comfort zone, you're going to fall. And, I don't ski as much as I used to, but I used to ski a lot. I was on the race team. And so, falling is part of the deal. It's not, you can't spend all your time being afraid of falling because then you're not going to push yourself. So look, today I fell. And was it my own mistake? Yeah. Was I too aggressive in the wrong spot? Obviously. And you could say the same thing over a skier who goes flying off into the, the side of the track or whatever, but, and hopefully not into the trees, but nonetheless, these things happen and, this is just the way it goes. So you got to roll with the punches. You got to take the hits, and I'm taking the hit today, but I'm down and not out. I'll be back at it first thing tomorrow. At this point, to finish off the week, if I could just have a small green day tomorrow, that would be fine. And unfortunately, it's going to mean that, well, look, already this week was not building a big cushion the way I would have liked for the first week of a new month. I was up 8,000 or 9,000 on Tuesday. I was up 3,000 yesterday. And today, even at the most, being up 10,000, is 25,000 on the week. That's not a huge week for me. So it wouldn't have allowed me to really step up and take a lot of risk going into next week. Now, who knows what tomorrow will hold for us, but nonetheless, this wasn't off to the strongest start anyways. So as we sit right now, I'm just going to have to accept that, we're still in a little bit of a colder market. We are seeing some moves, but then, they're not as clean as I'd like. And then that obviously creates a challenge with sizing up and being more aggressive. So I just need to pull back, off the throttle a little bit. I went too heavy today. I drew took a loss bigger than it should have been. And I need to self-correct there for tomorrow. So that's going to be my biggest goal. It's just trading within the limits and not adjusting them in the middle of the day to accommodate emotion, and to try just have a good finish to the week. Get myself, a little bit more profit on the month. I basically have nothing now after, today, but see if I can get myself back on the leaderboard in a little bit of a way, and then just reset over the weekend and then be back at it Monday morning for the first full week of September, a 5-day week, which will be nice. And, Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a market where you've got to have patience. And today, I lost my patience. Did I sleep well? I did. Did I eat well? I did. You know, I don't have a good reason for why I lost my patience today, other than maybe just a bit of frustration from not having, getting kind of burnt out from not having any big, satisfying wins in a while. And then having some of these stocks that end up pushing higher and I miss it because I sort of underestimate them. But that's typical of a cold market. You got to be able to handle that. So anyways, I can do better, and I'll try to do better tomorrow. So that's it for me. Reminder, as always, easy come, easy go. This is trading. So take it slow and make sure you're practicing in a simulator before putting real money on the line.